Welcome, Jon and Mary.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Everybody hear me in the background? I usually walk around a lot, but today I'm going to do something different because I have a lot to talk about. So, there's an activity right there. I have a lot to talk about, so I'm going to read a lot, unfortunately. I like to be out in front and perform, but this is more serious, okay? So I really enjoyed the last presentation, and by serious coincidence, my last 4 books are on, guess what? Victorian ghosts at a posh resort in the United States called Bedford Springs. So my last 4 books are on the hauntings of the Victorian ghosts. So I thought that was a strange experience. And in fact, we're going to have a conference in November on the Victorian ghost hunting at Bedford Springs. And we're going to use, I don't know if anybody remembers this, remember the Philip experiment? We're going to use the original table. We have the original table. And we're going to use it when we do this excavation in November. So that should be interesting. Maybe we'll conjure up another ghost. So we're going to talk about the strange nightlife of an otherwise serious archaeologist. I've been doing archaeology probably longer than some of you have been on Earth. My first archaeological excavation was in 1969. So I might be a little bit older than you think I am. It was in Winchester, England. So, yeah, Winchester, yes. Yes, at Wolsey Palace. So part of my presentation, but I won't get to it today, but if anybody wants to talk about it, we'll talk about it later, was on the wolves of Winchester, either a ghost of a wolf or a wolf that I transformed into during a seance. So that's a little teaser, but I'm not going to talk about that. But I'm going to talk about this, the strange nightlife. First slide, Mary. The only thing strange about me is my profession. And looking at that photo, I think there's something else strange. That's me. Kind of strange looking at it. Back in 1970 in Cholula, Mexico, at the site of the largest pyramid by volume in the world where I was doing excavations. So I've been around a lot doing archaeology a lot. So archaeological landscapes and the excavation process find a symmetrical linkage with the strange, the spectral, the uncanny, and the extraordinary. Seriously. Fieldwork represents a realignment of temporal normality and sometimes unusual presence effects. Frequently, excavation also involves traces of remains which threaten the concept of modernity, the separateness of past and present, presence and absence, human and other, among others. Loren Eiseley once said, the backstory. Okay, go ahead. Loren Eiseley once said, archaeologists during the course of their lives see and hear many strange things, but the fact that they are scientific men keeps them for the most part silent. If you talk to an archaeologist at a conference, which I've done many archaeological conferences, they will not talk about the seriously strange things that happen to them. But when you meet in the pub at night, that's all they talk about. So this is very interesting. Sometimes archaeologists during the course of their lives, again saying that, so sometimes that silence is deafening. Oh, by the way, this is Winchester, 1969, where I worked. This is where I worked at Wolsey Palace. This is where I stayed, and that was my trench for 4 weeks, digging down one of the earliest pipe trench systems in medieval history in 1969. So during the day, I was doing archaeology at Wolsey Palace. At night, I was then ghost hunting, and a lot of strange experiences. So afterwards, we can talk about that. So, but one who has unearthed the visible past, experiencing at times, as I've had, strangeness in the process of survey or excavation as the interruption of regularity and habit, will never cease to pursue thereafterwards worlds and realities beyond the excavated, the measured surface, and the daylight. Now, for me, the question, how do we imagine the past? From an archaeological point of view, has meant, since my first excavation in Winchester, digging into haunting phenomena. This process of excavating hauntings as a ghost excavation is part of the archaeological record, I propose, where the time of original events and the time of excavation, the original event and the excavation, is brought to afford one another, complement one another. So what we do is we do scenarios that replicate what happened in a particular place in the past, right there during the excavation process, where the material culture is still there. And it's unbelievable what you get. So, in this fieldwork, Night Country, explored by Lauren Isley, I have been to places where, to quote Isley, people and the other were always appearing from some other century or reality, entering and exiting. In those 40 plus years of doing archaeology, contrary to what you see on TV, I have never encountered anything negative or demonic. So, today I was going to talk about 3 such places, realities and presences, each representing a release from taxonomic definitions. But due to time constraints, I will limit the discussion to one in alignment with what we're talking about, ghosts and hauntings. Those of you who want to seriously pursue these other stories further, we can talk afterwards. Before beginning, a brief philosophical overture. Ever since that first archaeological excavation, I have worked within the framework of an operative reality. That is, during fieldwork, the question that emerges is not if this other reality or presence exists as I dig into it, but whether that exposure complies with a particular layer of past bundled memory, linked to a particular space, behavior, time, period-specific technology, and sensuality. All of those are bundled together, and when I excavate, I link up today with the past, but within those constraints. So I don't use modern ghost hunting technology because that does not resonate with past space, does not resonate with the memory of any attached presences that may still be there. That's why we get out! Because you're not resonating. That's not a demon saying that. That's somebody who says, you don't know what you're doing, ghost hunter. So, I am not simply talking about the excavation of an archaeologically defined material culture, but also actual presence in that other reality and sensory elements manifesting in various ways and forms. This is when the physical reality of being present with the archaeological remains, their presence and affordance and excavation performance resonate. Today, too many archaeologists, I've seen tons of time team, they do the same thing every week. That's not what I'm talking about. You go to these TV shows with ghost hunting, they do the same thing all the time, no matter what site. Each site is different, is hauntingly different. And so we do different performance practices in each site, depending upon what layers of memory are there. And we excavate by layers of memory, and all of these layers of memory are on the surface. They materialize. So if you're doing ghost hunting and you're using all this technology and you do a sweep there and you get a high EMF, you get a drop in temperature, where's that coming from? What layer of memory, or any layer of memory, where is it coming from? From 1890, 1790, 1690? You don't know. And it doesn't resonate, besides. This operational reality is meant to take things encountered in the field as they present themselves, rather than immediately assuming that they signify, represent, or stand for something else. Oh, it's a mistake. Oh, no, you didn't see that. Your mind's playing tricks with you, or whatever. So I take it very, very seriously, whatever happened. This is trying to make sense rather than attempting to establish a semiotic connection to a science of the sensible. The geographer Yifu Tuang has said that, quote, place is a pause in movement. The pause becomes a center of felt value. This value is a missing link. During my I've experienced many such missing links during my 5 decades of archaeological work. The story that follows is still without end. It represents traces and fragments of non-material culture in that other archaeological culture of my life. It remains embedded in a strata of my memory, having not escaped from the realm of that other reality. Such serious escapes from ordinary reality have evolved, not so strangely, into a different type of archaeologist, creating in me a person who is no longer a simple digger, but also a storyteller, a director of excavating performance practices, and an author of scripts directed toward this other type of presence and reality that for me has become not so seriously strange. So let's begin. So let's get to the first story. Go, Mary. Well, Storyscape 1, the Knickerbocker Hotel. Are the spirited guests still in? Now, I didn't misspell the word in. It's an inn like a hotel. It's a little play with words. So the first question is, an empty, ruin, or abandoned place landscape is not a surfaceless space, nor is it necessarily haunted. Space is not simply an artifact of human doing or imagining. It does not cease to exist as particular humans and cultures end their habitual relationship with it. Spatial dynamics are an ongoing process of holding together as a strata of memory, besides the strata it physically maintains. As a layer of memory in the form of a possible haunting, we, all of us, can be archaeologists, but we have to dig that layer out in situ. Going with a scan of electronic equipment on the surface does not dig out that layer. Because what may be materializing, where is it coming from? It might be a present anomaly or a past anomaly. It might be a present residual energy or a past residual energy. How are you going to determine that? Okay? Second, a haunting may be conceived as a form of structured deposition, just like an archaeological deposition interred in ground, but this is interred in memory, that remains embedded as a residual or attached as interactive presence in certain spaces. Many of today's ghost hunters, however, reduce fieldwork to principally data collection, recording, and measuring, and observation through an increasing variety of tech tools, a techno-feel-it approach. You're not feeling it necessarily, but your machine is. There is comparative silence, however, on the actual practice of doing field work. You look at all of these shows on TV, and they do the same thing, no matter where you're at. It has largely become a habit memory, not a true excavation, one that is context-specific in each potential haunted locality. Both excavation and ghost hunting, or paranormal investigation, call it what you want, is not simply the mechanistic recording, sampling, and measuring of space. It should be a creative process through specific performance practices and context-specific technologies to achieve resonance to a particular past layer of memory. So, when we're doing that Victorian excavation at Bedford Springs, the technology we are using is simply taking photographs. In 1888, the personal photograph came into vogue. You go to the resort today and all you see in all of these rooms are photographs of former guests. So they know what a camera is. They liked to be photographed. That is resonating with them. And we get a lot of visuals. And I'm not talking about orbs. I'm not talking about light anomalies. We're getting full figures of people in Victorian dress. And I can show you that later when we have time. That's important. W.E. Sabol, does anybody know him? You have Rings of Saturn? In the Rings of Saturn, discussing his walking tour along the east coast of Britain, says this, quote, "The longer I think about it, the more it seems to me that we who are still alive are unreal in the eyes of the dead." This statement opens ghost research to some serious fieldwork inquiries. At haunted locations, fieldwork, I propose, must abide by the social rules, etiquette, and moral principles of the possible presences and cultures being investigated. An anthropological ethic approach, ETIC approach, rather than being concerned about any particular outcome. As in the United States, the outcome they want is, oh, we're doing this to get a possible TV show. And believe me, I've been on I did many sizzles for TV shows, but they don't like what I do. I don't know why. Or I've been banned, actually, I did some shows, but I exposed the people on TV, and so I'm kind of, they won't let me get on TV anymore on these shows. Hey, I don't really care. Yes. So, this ethic approach, ETIC, and ethical approach is a deontological focus. It is to understand possible attached ghostly presence as social beings and still part of humanity. As anthropologist Tim Ingold has said that humanity is not a, quote, fixed and given condition, but a relational achievement. This relationality is a biosocial assemblage, an interaction between humans and other life forms. Such a perspective is meant to unbound the tech object, recorded and measured, making it part of a relationality between human and non-human, subject and object, past and present. It changes the paradigm of ghost hunting and paranormal investigation. It is to behave ethnographically, not through contemporary technology as the ghost in the machine. It means being context-specific to past experience, memory, behavior, and technological knowledge. In anthropological terms, this means the use of a, quote, regime of communicability. My case in point, do we have that? Okay, yeah. My case in point, the excavation through performance practices of a particular potentially haunted building using an architectural phenomenological approach. The excavation of potential haunted space is a rehabilitation. The repeated processes of using or occupying a space through context-specific practices. This is a state of being in the world through embodiment, revealed by experience and memory, but one in which the material culture embedded in a place and performance, both past and present, become key factors. This was the Knickerbocker Hotel in Lionsville, Pennsylvania. This was made famous in season 1 of, what's it called? Paranormal State. Is Paranormal State here in England? Yes. I was on that show, and I can tell you all kinds of stories about that show. I was on that show multiple times as an investigative consultant, and boy, oh boy, did they really cheat the system. So if anybody wants to talk about that, I will definitely talk about it. I'm not afraid to talk about that. So this is the Knickerbocker Hotel, the outside of it, and this is what it looks like at night. Kind of a really interesting place. It was season 1. So the Knickerbocker Hotel in Lionsville, Pennsylvania, an ideal location for the use of a regime of communicability in a place that continues to sustain wholeness. The excavation pursued the architectural entity as a process, a sensory and affecting experience, rather than merely reflecting the technological approach of record and measure. The ghost excavation better affords, I propose, an opportunity for remembrance in the excavation of a particular strata of memory. So, the Knickerbocker Hotel was a fully furnished hotel, though not currently active with contemporary guests, with full functioning services. Each room in the hotel's 3 floors is decorated differently, but in a manner that affords a rich resonance to particular layers of guest experience that span the history of the hotel. It is a location where actual and authentic materials can be used to partially recreate space, experience, and place. This reduces the range of possibilities of haunting phenomenon to a selection of probabilities, which affords a ghost to interact because you're resonating with what occurred in the past that recalls their memory and what they remember. So, the excavation involved in situ presence. We were embedded there for 8 consecutive days and nights as hotel guests, with visiting guests, 8 different investigators with no prior knowledge of the haunting as transient hotel guests. Okay, this is some of the rooms that were decorated. This is a child's room. There's some toys there and photographs from period photographs. This is a room that was served as a place where a bride and groom spent their wedding night. There was another room there that we didn't know anything about the history of that room. One of our investigators stayed there that night, and the next morning woke up, oh my God, my stomach is killing me. I feel like somebody's been, I don't know. And he said, well, lift up your shirt. He lifted up his shirt, all black and blue. So I said, wow. And then we asked the hotel owner, what's going on? Why would that be? And she says, well, did you know who stayed in that room? John L. Sullivan. Do you know John L. Sullivan? A boxer, a famous boxer from the early 20th century. Now, he did not know that. None of us knew that, but it's like he was using this investigator as a punching bag. Just tons of stuff going on. So, we ate daily in the hotel restaurant, with meals prepared in the hotel kitchen. Some were context-specific relative to those served in the hotel during particular events, such as the meal served during the hotel's opening in 1882. Same meal, resonating with what happened. We slept in the rooms where particular guests slept based on the hotel's ledger. We performed hotel-related activities, simulating members of staff through mundane habitual acts based on the historical record of the hotel at the time of particular occupancies. Resonate through and through. Next slide, Mary. We dressed. There's Mary and another investigator. So we were dressing, period. We talked, period. We never met. We don't go around and say, is anybody here with us tonight? That immediately identifies you as an outsider. We don't have badges that say Ghost Hunters of Bath or anything like that. We use period costumes. This is a couple of the investigators, each dressed differently depending upon the scenario they're going to enact in particular rooms relative to what happened that we know of in those particular rooms. We had another guest who was a dandy. Does anybody know what a dandy is? Okay, he was a dandy, and he would walk down the hallway with his dog. We did not know that at the time. All we knew, he was a dandy, so we got 2 men dressed up kind of really, dandyish, and they walked down the hall, and I said, well, really get into it. So I made them kiss. You got to do everything for a ghost excavation, So we recorded the scene. What we got, what? Oh, 5 minutes, okay. What we got was a dog barking. This dandy had a dog in his room all the time, and we didn't know that at the time. Was that his dog? Okay, so our ghost excavation borrows in part from James, I gotta rush it now, because I have 5 minutes. Borrows from James Gibson's 1986 eco-psychological theory of affordance. An affordance is an entangled relation of elements between a particular environment, such as the Knickerbocker Hotel, and entities such as hotel ghosts and possible attached such as hotel guest and possible ghost, which through a bundle of stimuli, behaviors, objects, sensory cues, context specific to a particular layer of experience, memory, and technology, affords the opportunity for an entity to perform in a particular way. Investigative behavior or performance becomes both an act of doing and a way of knowing, is this place haunted and by whom? Because what you're getting is materializations not by what the investigator says. Could you turn this light on? Could you turn this torch on? Could you move this meter? It's by what they do, which is definitely specific to what occurred, not only in that hotel, but in that particular room. Okay? So, I'll just show, do we have EVP? I don't call them EVPs, I call them EOCs, ethnographies of communication, because they are specific to STP, space, time, and place. Okay, get this one. Now, this is a very emotional one because it's Mary talking to a child on the 3rd floor. And this child, well, go ahead, Mary, play the first one. Hurry up, Mary.
I'm so not sad. Press this.
No, just use it.
Right,
Okay, we'll get it afterwards. You hear that what Mary is counting numbers, and the child is also counting numbers, but when she's saying 8, the child is saying 9, and when she's saying 9, the child is saying 10. And then when she does it again, the child says 5, 5. He likes the number 5. It's really, really wild stuff. And then when she starts counting again ahead, 1, 2, the child is going 10, 9, 8, going backwards. So don't worry, Mary, we only got 5 minutes.
8, 9, 10.
You hear him say 10 before she does? Go ahead. The second one, Mary.
Say this before. Use mics. Check the side way.
5. Saying something else. 7. 5. 5. This is just a short clip. It's very, very long. Okay, so since I only got 2 minutes, in conclusion, at the Knickerbocker Hotel, materializations occurred repeatedly and were recorded independently by different investigators over time in the same spaces, room and functional hotel spaces, without knowledge of what other investigators previously experienced or did not experience. These materializations exhibited specific cultural behaviors relative to historical and known hotel guests who stayed in particular rooms. Some materializations even exhibited transductive qualities, independent of our simulated acts of behavior, as if they were eager to do something different by not copying our performance practices. The hotel itself, its functional spaces and room decor illustrates how an assemblage of things and people, both past and present, can maintain historical identity through context-specific ethno-historical behaviors and objects that afforded opportunities for any attached presences to materialize and communicate. The excavation serves as an other means of conceptualizing a haunting through the process of identity that works both ways, present to past, past to present. This is a view of identity as an emergent property of affording assemblages, which includes place, performance, and objects as issues of experience, memory, and effect. Finally, this is real quick, through excavating performances, human experience, engagement as immersion, and sensory elements rework a traditional excavation toward digging as a creative process. This means, I propose, that this type of archaeological exploration as a way of imagining the past has a lot to offer ghost research within the framework of an other operational reality. Thank you. How was it, okay?
Good. Thank you very much, Jon and Mary. Much appreciated. We'll just have 30 seconds while we change over. There are